Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's edition of Wine, Women, and Words. And with me, of course, is Michelle. And then also joining us is our lovely guest this week, Annie England Noblin. Is that correct?
Noblin.
Noblin. Okay, I was going to go with Noblin, but I'm like, that's probably wrong. And we say this all the time. We really need to get the pronunciation before the guests actually go live.
It's fine. Everybody always says Noblin, so it's okay.
Okay. Well, we're here to talk about your book, The Sisters Hemingway. And so thank you so much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
So for those who aren't familiar with the book, tell us a bit about The Sisters Hemingway.
Okay, so it's set in the Missouri Ozarks, which is, I always tell people we're not really in the South, but we're not in the Midwest. So the Ozarks is sort of like this little area, not quite Arkansas, but close. And so it's about three sisters who grow up in the Ozarks, and they're raised by their aunt. And when their aunt dies, they sort of converge back to this farm where they were raised. And none of them have been back in about 15 to 20 years. And they're not close anymore. And so the story is basically about these three sisters kind of finding each other again and then finding themselves. And of course, there's a little romance and a little bit of mystery in there as well.
Fantastic. Now, you tell the story from each of the sisters' perspectives. What was it like writing from a different character's point of view through the story and having them each so unique? Because they're all very unique, and we'll get into that in a few minutes. But
it was strange because I'd never done that before, and I did it because I wanted to try something new. Because my previous three books were all told from just one point of view. And so my biggest concern was that I wasn't going to get enough character development for all three sisters. But it ended up being really, really fun. And it was neat to be able to sort of jump into different characters and get into their heads, because when you're just writing from one character's perspective, you don't get what's going on, outside of that one character's head. So that was really, really fun for me.
And yes, it's each one is so different. When I was reading that, it was really easy to go from one sister to the next and see just how different these sisters were, which is, something to be said for the book and also for sisters as well. I mean, you have the same upbringing, but sometimes you can just be so very different.
Yes, very. I don't have any sisters. I have one younger brother. He's actually 8 years younger than me. But I have two best friends, and so I sort of play it out because we're so close but very, very different. And so I thought about that a lot as I was writing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I mean that sister bond also has a bit of a best friend bond as well going on with it. Yeah, and then Hemingway. Let's talk about the Hemingway connection, because I mean that's initially what drew me into the book. Obviously, was the Hemingway connection, because I love all things Lost Generation, which I'm assuming that's where. Yeah. And so yeah, we've got Hadley, the polished wife of a senator, Pfeiffer, the successful New York book editor, and Martha, who skyrocketed to Nashville stardom. Now, were any of these characters inspired by Hemingway's wives?
Yes, in some ways, especially Martha, because Hemingway's third wife, Martha Gellhorn, was this writer, and she wasn't necessarily a celebrity when they were married, but she was very much an independent woman in her own right and sort of had her own personality and her own life before him. And so Martha a lot. And, Pfeiffer a little bit, because she's the more very stylish, and Pauline Pfeiffer, Hemingway's second wife, was a lot like that. So I tried to put a little bit of each one of his wives into the character as much as I could.
Mm-hmm. And then when you were just kind of going back to writing the different characters, when you were developing their voices, did you ever have to because I've never tried writing different points of view either. And the thought of, sometimes creating one solid voice to write with can be challenging, but creating three different distinct characters, did you ever kind of have to go back and revise how you wanted the characters to sound?
Yes, because I was always afraid that I would go from, I think I started with Pfeiffer comes first, and then Martha, and then Hadley. And I was always afraid when I was writing in, hey, like, from one character to the next, that Pfeiffer would sound like Martha or Hadley, and I would, mess up. And there were times, especially in copy editing, when I would you get this copy edited manuscript back and it's bleeding. But you're also very grateful to the copy editor, because that's just must be a very hard job. But she would say, should this be Pfeiffer or is this Hadley talking? And so sometimes I would even, as I was writing, I would get mixed up a few times and put, said Pfeiffer and it was Hadley, and I'd have to go back in and switch it out. And so it gets a little confusing sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you really pull the full writer and sit there and talk to your characters and tell one to stop talking so you can focus on another one.
They don't always cooperate.
No, they never do. They never do what you want them to do.
They don't.
So, and then,
that's okay, Michelle, go ahead.
Sorry, I had a question and then it went and now it's back. And I love the idea that, it's even true in real life that sometimes family who is kind of estranged, or they, for whatever reason, they kind of drift apart. It's really oftentimes a tragedy that brings them back together. Even in real life, were there ever any other ideas of how they would come back together, or did you always know that it was going to be, a tragedy that kind of helps them start to regrow together?
I think for this book, I always knew there had to be a tragedy. I sort of like to write about growth from like tragedy and terrible things that happen, which sounds bad, but I like that sort of rebirth of the strength of people, because I think most people have gone through something that is tragic in their own way, and most of the time we survive it because we have to. And so I like to write about that survival simply because you don't have any choice, and what comes out of that survival. So for this book, I always knew there was going to be a tragedy, but I didn't always know where the characters were going to take me in regards to that tragedy, and they surprised me a few times.
It's funny you say that, writers, we sometimes really like writing about tragedies and what happens after that. A writer friend of mine, this week we met for coffee, and he was talking, and he said, the things that I want to write about, the things that, really stick with me are all tragedies or, sad events. And really, who wants to read about tragedies? I'm like, well, William Shakespeare was not so much about the happy endings. And everyone seemed to really like his stuff. So.
Yeah. Yes, and I like to write about the triumph of the human spirit. We can get through whatever terrible thing happens, and I like books that have happy endings, but I also like books that are realistic and show that not everything is perfect, and you don't always get what you want or what you need. But at the end of the book, there's always some sort of the characters come to an understanding, or are relatively happy by the time it's over. Well,
and that's one of the things I like about the way you portrayed this tragedy and what happens. Because, it's no secret the aunt who raised them died. And so they've got to come back. They come back because of that. And I think with something as realistic as that, I think it's also one of those medicinal, therapeutic kind of reads for people, where if you're dealing with somebody who's passed away, you can have this book, or you're dealing with family that you don't get along with. That can also, I found some of that therapeutic stuff in there too, within it. So I think that's, that's the good thing about tragedy, and that's one of the good things about this book too, in my opinion. That's one of the things I really connected with.
Good. I'm really glad. I sometimes worry that things might, trigger people in certain ways. My third book had a lot to do with the loss of a child, and so I always am thinking in the back of my mind, am I writing from a place where I know what I'm talking about, or is somebody going to read this and think that's not, that doesn't sound right? And so it makes me feel good when people feel like they connect to the tragedy, or they can identify with it in some way, because then that means that I've, at least for that reader, have done my job. So.
Mm-hmm. And the location, I want to touch on that a bit, because I mean, you mentioned it when we first came on, Missouri, where was the Missouri Ozarks, but the location is vital to the story in so many ways.
The location is very much a character.
Yes, I was going to say that.
This is my second book that is set in the Missouri Ozarks. So the first book is called Just Fine with Caroline, and it's a Cold River novel, just like the Sisters Hemingway, and it's also set here. And I think that anybody who has an attachment to where they live, like I do, I mean, people feel very strongly usually about where they live and the people who live there. And where I live, it's very much about family and coming together, and in general, not so welcoming of outsiders. It's very little, close-knit, and it's you're either from here or you're not. Mm-hmm. And that is sometimes a running theme in my books, because, like I said, the Ozarks is its own character. I heard someone tell me, or telling somebody else once, that you needed a passport to come here. I probably should have been offended, but I wasn't, because it makes total sense. If you are not from here, you get here and you're like, what is this? It takes a little while to sort of assimilate. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I pulled out one of the sentences. Martha saw a man on a horse trotting along on the side of the road, a typical sight in Cold River. No, this certainly was not the first place she thought she'd visit after rehab. But that sentence, that first sentence alone, the man walked, the horse on there. I mean, you don't see that very often in a lot of places. I totally understand. I live by ranchitos, so there's some little Mexican ranches right around the corner from where I am. So it's very urban, but at the same time, I kid you not, I went to the grocery store once, and there was a horse tied up in the shopping carts, where you store the shopping carts.
I live not too far from a large Amish community. It's about an hour away, and that at the McDonald's there in Seymour, Missouri, they have a hitching post for buggies and for horses, because the Amish community go to McDonald's and they go to the gas station, and and so there are places.
Wait a minute. They go to McDonald's? That's like, isn't that like a violation?
It's very strange. But it's interesting when you drive by and you see that hitching post. Mm-hmm. Never seen a buggy go through the drive-through, but we do, especially like on Sundays, we'll see the buggy or the horse hitched up to the hitching post. And we have a few of those here, just because it's a rural community and people ride a lot, but it's much more common in that community because they have such a large Amish population, and it's always been funny, I think, to see it. Because it's common. People don't think about it. They don't notice it anymore. And so again, if you're not from here, you think, what is going on?
Yeah, because I mean, I grew up on the East Coast, and we had a fairly large Amish community not far from where I grew up. Not once did I see Amish people in the McDonald's, and there were no hitching posts set up by the McDonald's. I could be wrong, but it's something very unique, I think, to your Cold River area.
Probably.
So, now, give this for some context. We have some family in Missouri. Some of my brother-in-law and his family, but they're in Kansas City. So where are the Ozarks in relation to that?
Okay, so basically much further south.
Okay.
So you would go. Do you know where Springfield, Missouri is?
Yeah. Well, I don't know it, but I know it on a map.
So you would basically go 2 hours south of Kansas City to Springfield, and then another 2 hours.
Oh,
That's where I live. So it's about a 4-hour drive from where I live to Kansas City.
okay.
It's not the farthest away, but it's a drive.
It feels very far when I used to live in Texas, and even going for an hour, it feels like here, me driving for an hour out here feels like in LA doesn't feel like much, especially because most of the time I'm in traffic. But when I was driving for like an hour in Texas, it felt really long because you just go through miles and miles of nothing.
Yes, that's how it is here. I drive an hour to and from work every day. I teach in Arkansas, and so and I've been doing it for, I don't know, almost 9 years. And a lot of people are like, "How can you do that every single day? It's so far." And I think about when I lived in St. Louis, and it took me 45 minutes to go, 10 miles. And I would prefer to drive not in traffic because I have road rage.
Oh, I hear you on that.
I'm much better driving long distances when there's nothing than when I'm sitting in traffic. So it doesn't bother me, but I know a lot of people, like my husband would hate to drive an hour to and from work. He would not like that. But I don't mind it because that's how I grew up, so I'm used to it.
And so at the, it's on the back of the book, so I'm not giving anything away. But another loss that they have to deal with through the story is the loss of their mom and their youngest sister, and they died a long time ago.
And let me just say, that was quite a scene to open up with.
Yeah, that was a really powerful scene to read.
That was my first attempt at a prologue. I'd never done it before. And I just thought, I felt like the reader needed some context to sort of see to sort of see the tragedy or read the tragedy for themselves. And that kind of weather is actually very common where I live. So like last night, for example, it was like 70 degrees here yesterday where I live. And then the temperature started to drop. And so it was freezing in some parts of Missouri, and they had sleet and snow. It was 70 degrees in some parts of Missouri. And then we had tornadoes here last night in February. So that is I guess kind of goes back to the setting, because that would be very typical of what it's like to live here. Obviously not quite as traumatic for most people. But I felt like that would be a good way to introduce also the reader to the setting as well.
Yeah, Diana's out in LA. I'm in Chicago, or the suburbs. And no one told me when we found out we were moving here that this is part of tornado country.
Surprise!
Yeah, it was awesome when I found that out, because I can handle earthquakes without a problem, because I grew up in California for a number of years. But the first time I heard that siren go off,
it's scary.
And it not be a drill, because we have like the first Tuesday of every month they do a drill and everything. So the first time you hear that siren go off, and my husband texts me, he goes, "That was what do I do? Can you come home?" Like, and he goes, "Just go get the kids, go into the bathroom and get into the bathtub." I'm like, okay, that really doesn't do much though. Like, I feel like that's very little protection.
We don't have a basement, which I hate, because I really like storms, but nobody's a fan of tornadoes. That's like saying you like to go to funerals, but it's really a stress for me. And so when the sirens go off, they talk. So it also feels a little bit like a bomb threat.
Yeah.
And so our neighbor has a cellar across the street. And so I have like a dog under each arm, like trying to put pants on, telling my kid, it's fine. We're going across the street to the storm shelter. And I don't enjoy that.
What's the other thing that they say is to go into an inside room, like a room that doesn't have every single room in my house has an outside wall. Except for like this tiny little hall closet. So it would be like me, the kids, the cat, and the husky.
That sounds fun.
Right? Sounds like a party.
Awesome family bonding time.
Right?
Oh, River would probably be like, "Can I go outside and play?" The husky.
Yes.
He would probably be super excited about that. But yeah, that was a really powerful scene to open up to, especially, you know, trying to think, like feeling the panic of the mom not knowing where her kid is when the storm is actually coming. And that was there are some scenes where if I'm reading, I kind of have to like put down and like take a break from, because it's making my mom heart too anxious.
Well, good. I mean, I hate to be that way, but I'm glad it had the desired effect. So
We writers really are a twisted bunch, aren't we?
oh, we're terrible.
We absolutely are, yes. And I mean, for you as a mom writing that scene, that must have been terrifying. It must have been a hard scene for you as well.
It was, because you have to. I don't know about how it is for you all when you write, but I see it in my head as I'm writing it, and so it feels real. I didn't have to take a break during that one, but I have had to do that before. Put it away because I thought this feels too real, and I'm going to give myself a panic attack if I keep writing about it. And it can be hard, especially when you're writing about kids and you have kids. And I didn't understand that before I had children, because I didn't think about it in that way. But now I see my kid's face in every kid that I write about. So it's, I guess, a blessing, sort of.
Mm-hmm. Makes the writing more authentic, I suppose.
Yeah.
So you felt the anxiety attack that I was having when I was reading it.
Yeah.
And she's laughing at you, Michelle.
I know.
Actually laughing at you because she's like, ha ha ha, I'm going to drink in your tears.
That's right.
I love that. You're like, yeah, absolutely, yes.
That's what it was.
I'm proud of it.
Supposed to stress you out.
Well, I mean,
That's what we writers live for.
That's right.
I want someone to read a very, you know, what you feel is a very powerful or intense scene and have them go, eh.
Yeah,
Like,
that's always I worry about that, because I think, well, maybe they don't think about it, or, you know, it doesn't bother them the same way it bothers me. I worry about that, and I also worry about the romantic scenes that I'm being too cheesy. Those are like my two biggest concerns, you know, that people are going to go, oh, and roll their eyes, because we've all been there. We're reading something and we're just like, that's not accurate. You know, it has to be a little over the top, but you don't want it to be too over the top. And I feel that way about the dramatic scenes too. I want it to be realistic enough that people don't roll their eyes, but I also want it to raise their blood pressure just a little bit.
well, that's, I mean, yeah, you don't want way over the top where it's like, come on now, let's be real.
I don't write fantasy, so.
Or telenovelas. I mean, if we're writing telenovelas, then, you know, it could be completely over the top. Or soap operas. I mean, I go to telenovelas because I feel like telenovelas they go for the cheese. They see something that's cheesy and they're like, I'm going to make it even more cheesy.
How can we make it even more?
It's like that SNL all in California. And have you seen, they're all looking at the camera, you know, talking about, you know, traffic or whatever. That I don't ever want that when it's not on purpose.
Absolutely.
And on top of the mom and the youngest sister and the aunt, we also have each of the sisters are dealing with their own tragedies in their own personal lives that they don't really see their way out of right away. You know, they all have like their own secrets that they're hiding. For while you were writing, which character, which sister kind of took you by surprise the most as you developed, or as she developed for herself?
I think probably Hadley, because she was supposed to be kind of the more aloof sister, not really a snob, but, you know, she's got it together. Martha is a mess, and she never claims to be anything other than that. And Pfeiffer is very quirky, and but Hadley is very poised. She's married to a politician, and I saw her with a very, you know, sleek haircut and very specific pantsuits. You know, I saw her character as being this the kind of person that I am like never going to be ever. And so I really wanted to create that character, but the more I started to write, the more I realized that she's actually this very warm person, this warm motherly individual, and so as I was writing, I was like, man, she's not really who I thought she was, and it ended up working out really well. But it definitely surprised me that I don't know, just who she ended up being by the end of the book was not necessarily what I expected.
Mm-hmm. I love that, how they can trick you. I mean, you think you got a plan, and then
characters are the worst, man. They just do whatever they want to do, and you just have to follow along.
Yeah, it's like that saying. There's that saying: we make plans and God laughs. We make plans and then our characters laugh.
Every time.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Oh, sorry. My sound was being funky for a minute there, and it's not. It's fine. Okay. But at least the feedback is gone, right?
Yes.
It must have been it. The dishwasher stops. I'm pretty sure it was the dishwasher.
Let's go with that. We'll go with that as opposed to our own technical issues.
Yes, we're going to blame it all on outside.
Blame it on the dishwasher. I mean, who washes their dishes anyways?
Not me.
No.
Thank you. Yeah, me neither. Yeah.
The dishes were like stacked in the sink, and I walked into the living room, and I looked at my husband and I said, I wish I could just go like this and have it be done. And then I took the kids upstairs and put them to bed, and I came back and the dishes were done, and I looked at him and he goes, someone went like this.
Aww.
Oh, well done.
He's a keeper.
For sure.
And he's like the week now. But anyway, we are reaching our half an hour here. Do you have anything already in the works that we can look forward to that you can talk about?
Yes, so I'll have 2 more books that I know of coming after this one. My 5th book is already completed. It's in copy editing. It's called the St. Francis Society for Wayward Pets. And because all of my books have animals in them, I can't write a book without an animal. I don't think that would be possible. And so it's actually set in Washington State, which is very far away from what I'm used to doing. So it's kind of I don't know what the word is. I'm reaching on that one. It's new. I think it'll be out spring of 2020, so maybe around this time next year. And it's about a woman who is seeking out her birth parents in her late 30s. And then my 6th book is the one I'm writing right now, and it is that's a tentative title. I don't know if it'll stay that way, but it's about 3 women, friends this time though, not sisters, who take a road trip after the death of a friend. And so it's also a very different kind of book. So it's been really, really fun so far.
Oh, fantastic. They sound like books that we're going to have to pick up as well. Yes. But thank you so much for joining us. And but the Sisters Hemingway is out now. So everybody pick up your copy, because this is available. It's from William Morrow, so it's going to be available wherever you get your books.
Everywhere.
The bookstore near you.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
So at this point, everyone, we are going to switch over to our discussion of the Kingdom of Copper. It's our February book of the month. If you recall, we read The City of Brass last July and became obsessed.
Very easily obsessed.
The opening scene of
So by the way, guys, there's going to be some spoilers. So if you have not read up to, I'm assuming chapter 2, Michelle.
Yeah, I got a little sidetracked this week, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so if you guys have not picked this up and at least read to chapter 2, put a pause, go read those 2 chapters, and then come back.
Yes.
Because we're going to be discussing, there's spoilers right at the beginning. I was not expecting the surprise, shocking twist right at the start of the book. Go, Shan. I love it.
Well, okay, so
yeah, because I mean, we need to discuss that because I had some theories at the end of the last book. If you do not recall,
I want to go back and reread like the last 3 chapters of the last book to fully remember everything. So let's just do a quick recap to refresh everyone's memory. Point number 1. I am convinced that Ollie is like a zombie body snatcher type deal. That's my theory, though.
That's your theory. I will, because I'm ahead of you. I'm on chapter 7, so I'm ahead of you.
But the opening scene with Ollie does not dissuade me from my theory. Let's just put it that way. But anyway, number 1, Nari agrees to marry Ollie's brother.
Montadir? Yeah.
Agrees to marry him. Dara, we don't really know what's going on with Dara. We just know
he was killed, and then he ended up in the ether.
Right. The best friend, I can't remember his name right now.
Josh Mead?
Yes. He is
severely injured.
Hold on. Well,
he was severely injured, and then he was severely injured, and they had to take out the thing keeping him from showing that he was a Nahid.
That's right.
That he could heal, and then they had to put it back in. They put it back in because he couldn't just heal himself fully. We discovered that he's actually a Nahid in hiding.
Right. So he is like Nari.
Mm-hmm.
And then Ali is exiled.
Mm-hmm.
And his dad is basically sending all these mercenaries out to kill him now because his dad robbed.
His dad is so awful. And I've got my issues with the dad, but at the same time, I pity him in a way too.
I don't really know if I pity him all that much.
By the time you get to chapter 7, you might pity him a little bit.
Well,
I pity him a little bit. I mean, he still he should get his just desserts. He's still an awful person, but I pity him based on the fact of the choices that he winds up making in his life.
Oh, sorry. I'm not yawning because of the book. I'm yawning because I'm yawning.
You're yawning because of me. I know.
So no. By the way, what are you drinking? Because I'm not feeling 100%, so I passed on the wine tonight.
Yet again, you leave me to drink by myself. I mean, that was the one thing I was able to grab before I rushed up and started the show. I'm actually drinking a Pinot Noir tonight from France. A friend brought back for me.
Very nice.
Mm-hmm. It's quite good. It's got a very berry flavor to it.
That sounds lovely.
Mm-hmm. It is. I mean, it is French wine, so French wine is great. But if you guys want to get some wine, don't forget to go to our sponsor, Wink, and then go to the link, trywink.com/www podcast, and you can get $22 off your first order of wine.
And you can get French wine is on there, right? It's all over the world. Australia, France.
Yes.
I know that's not a country, but there's California wine on there.
Sometimes I like to think that we're a country.
So basically, that's where we are with the book right now. And going back to my body snatcher theory.
Let's go back to let's go through our theories that we had at the end of the first book, because this is the first time that we're reading. Okay, so we've read series, like the first in a series before, because we read last year. We did the Deborah Pratt's book.
Right. And then, I
We've
mean,
read a piece of a series, but this is the first time we've actually come back and read the second book in a series as our book of the month. So I'm actually kind of really excited about this.
so yeah, so Diane and I both had theories at the end. If you read City of Brass, Ollie fell into the water and got sucked down by the water.
Marid or something like that they're called.
Marid, or Marid.
Yes, thank you.
But he came back, and he came back like crazy powerful, and he could manipulate water and do all this stuff. So I am convinced that he is actually no longer human, and he is one of the Marid now, or Marid, however we pronounce it. And like the first 5 pages basically confirmed that for me.
I think he's possessed by the Marid. I think they claimed him as their own. And isn't he part Marid anyway?
I don't know if we actually.
His mother was.
I know he was the only one who liked swimming, like going back to his childhood and his flashbacks about his time with his mom. I know that she liked swimming and he loved being in the water, but I don't know if they ever actually said that she was part. Or
I think that was one of those things where they claimed that she had Marid blood in her.
Oh, maybe. See, I should have reread the first book just to keep it.
It's so funny you say reread. I never reread books. I hardly ever. I can name on one hand the number of books I go back and reread, because as much as I love books and I love the stories and I love to go back and revisit them, for me there's just so many books out there. If it's like I take the time to reread one book, I'm gonna miss out on another book. I'm weird like that. I know.
Oh no, let me tell you just really quick anecdote about my life. Yesterday I'm upstairs, I come downstairs and Rich is on his phone and he goes, "What book do you want?" And I was like, "What?" And he goes, "Well, I'm ordering something on Amazon and I'm figuring it'll be okay if I buy you a book too. So what book do you want?" Because I have like 20 books in my save for later thing on Amazon, and he's like going through them. And I was like, well, wait, okay, hold on. This is a very important decision when you can pick just one. So I need to go back and look at all the books. And my OCD about books was showcased hardcore in this story. I found a book that I really liked. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll get this one. And then I looked at the picture, and it was like the little super small paperbacks. And I was like, oh, no, I don't like that size. It doesn't go with my bookshelf. I like the bigger paperbacks. And then so finally I'm looking at more books. I'm like, you know what? I can't pick. Just don't get me a book. I don't know what book I want. It's so hard to pick just one book.
It is. It is. That's why I love being on HarperCollins review list, because it's like I don't get to pick my books. They pick the books for me. And
it's a lot easier when someone just says, here.
Yeah, here, read these books. And I'm like, okay. By the way, HarperCollins, unofficial sponsor of Wine, Women, and Words. Check out their books. Which, by the way, both of our books for this tonight are HarperCollins books. HarperCollins Voyager and William Morrow. So let's discuss some of my theories that I had on this book.
What are your theories, Diana?
My theories. So if you remember, I had a very big theory about Nari's mother, which I can never pronounce her name. It's Menise. It's
I just name because of something that may or may not have happened. Hold on. Banu Manize.
Yeah, let's just go with Nari's mom. So my theory was that Nari was actually her mother, reincarnated, and Jashmead was her brother. And that he was a brother, and then he was a brother reincarnated. They did something. They faked their deaths, and they've come back. And as these other people, which made sense because she's hiding. She's hidden within who she is. She looks like a human, but yet she's got these Nahid abilities, etc., etc. So, yeah, half of that is shot to hell. In the prologue, we find out what happens to Dara, that he comes back. Yay, because that was my horse in the race. And he comes back, and we find out who brings him back. None other than Nari's mother. So Nari's alive. Nari's mother's alive. And she needs Dara to rescue her daughter. And that's where the book starts. That's where we take off.
But it's not just rescue her daughter. She's going to overthrow this whole setup here. Like she's out for blood now at this point.
I don't blame her.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, Gasham is a dick. And look at what he's done to her. She couldn't raise her own child.
Well, and then, I mean, another interest, there was a very slight and kind of under the wire time jump at the beginning. All of a sudden, it was kind of like right after the wedding night when Nari got married. And then, like, maybe a couple pages into chapter 1, it was like, oh, it's 5 years later. Okay. So, but I mean, what he's done to Nari, I mean, she's married to Muntadir, but she's basically a prisoner. Like, she can't even go for a walk and stop for a cup of coffee.
Yeah, anytime she leaves the castle, somebody gets killed. That's her one weakness, is that she cares about other people, so somebody gets severely injured or killed because she just wants to go for a walk. She wants to go visit her people. He wants to control her because he knows that Nari basically is the key to people can rally behind her and rebel. And he's trying to hold on to his power in any way that he can. And, I can see a king wanting to hold on to his power, but the way he's going about it, we come to find out, this isn't a huge spoiler, but we find out that his father did something very similar. And so he's taking the same steps, the same things that he hated his father for, he's doing himself. And that's where I find some of the pity. Because it's a tragedy when we turn in, people have a tendency to take after their parents in some way or another. We get our parents' traits. But I find it, a tragedy when you can't break out of the cycle of an abusive parent, which Kasham's dad sounds like he was an abusive parent and he was a bad king. Like, bad king. I mean, really, he, held down, suppressed a whole group of people. I think that counts as a bad king.
I think that falls into the category.
Yeah. And what he did was, what he did with Nai's mother, I mean, trying to keep her under control, too.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel I'm getting the sense that he had tried to do the same thing that Gasham had made Nari do. He was trying to get Nari's mother to marry Gasham. I think it was what happened in the past. But I also have a theory about who Nari's dad is.
Ooh, we're getting into the dad now, huh?
We're getting into the dad now. I've got a theory. I think I might need you to read more before I tell you what the theory is.
All right.
But it makes sense once you read a little bit more into it.
Well, it's not Ghassan, because that would be really awkward, because then they would be like half brother and half sister.
Yeah, it's definitely not Ghassan. No, it's not him, because he never touched her. I think she had to love her, and I think she ended up having. I wouldn't be surprised if Jashmeed and Nari, because I still think they're siblings. I would not be surprised if they were twins.
Well, he was one of my favorite characters in the first book. Like,
well, don't worry, he makes a good comeback, and you see more of him in this book. Shan even told us. Shan told us in the last episode that she was on with us that he would make more of an appearance. So hold your horses, you'll see more of him.
It was still sad, but yes, I'm very excited to see him again, and even the sister, Zainab, I think her name is. She's still kind of bitchy, but I'm warming to her a little bit. I don't know if I'm misguided, but
no, not right now.
But I'm still completely 100% blown away by how detailed this world is. Like this world
Right?
just comes alive. I really admire authors who can do that, who can create these entirely different worlds. And I just like, how do you do that?
Yeah, it's so rich, it's so vibrant. I feel like I'm out there. I love this. I love these stories, and I love all the praise that she gets from because they're great. They're great. It's a great story. The first book was really good. This one so far is equaling up with us with the first book. I mean, and sometimes, you know, with the second book, you've got to slow it down because you had that first book with the initial adventure, and then the second book, in a lot of ways, is set up for what's going to happen in the third book. You know, you feel that initial setup, but I feel like there's going to be a really good ride.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, yeah. But I mean, she's created a different world, a whole political system, a whole religious, I mean, different religions, different mythologies, different languages, different names. It blows me away.
And I love that at the back of the book, she's got the glossary again. And we have the tribes at the back.
Oh, that's right.
It's so hard to go back and look at the stuff for reference without looking at like the epilogue and stuff.
Oh,
trust me, it's going to be tempting, guys.
There's a Jemsheed right there. He's alive, you guys. We knew this, but it's nice to see.
Sometimes you just got to be reassured that your favorite characters made it to the sequel.
And fortunately, there is no spoiler looking at the list of characters because I don't know any of them. I know some of them, but I don't know like most of them. Except I did meet Eshma, the queen of the Ifrit, and she's a ray of sunshine.
Right?
She was the one. And okay, so let's talk about this for a second. That Dara is free of Suleiman's curse.
Mm-hmm.
He's, you know, a free genie.
Mm-hmm.
I know he's not a genie, but I'm picturing Aladdin at the end when the genie is free. But it's a lot more traumatizing than that because he's like on fire and he can't control his power anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And he can't even get into Devabad because he doesn't have any Deva blood in him anymore. So he can't go get Nari. Like, and he was so close. Like, he was with his little sister and he was about to move on. And
see, I didn't want him to move on because he's got to be with Nari because he's, like I said, he's my horse in the race. I know you want her and Ollie together, but I'm with Dara. I mean, I like Ollie. I like what's going on with Ollie. I like his story. I'm liking this new water-possessed Ollie, but I'm still a Dara girl. I'm still Team Dara.
Well, I mean, Ollie is a water zombie now, so...
Allegedly. We have to put allegedly before we actually incriminate him. He is allegedly a water zombie.
Well, that doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. I mean, he created a spring in the middle of the desert.
Mm-hmm. I mean, if you go and move to a drought-prone area, he could be king.
Right? I mean, that's basically what saved his life from the words come out of my mouth.
From the mercenaries.
Thank you.
You're welcome. But I mean, you marry him, you'll always have a beachside existence.
And I mean, but you go with Dara, and I mean, s'mores whenever you want them.
I think that beats beachside existence any day. And especially for a girl like me who is always cold, you give me the warm-blooded dude. It's like a match made in heaven.
I mean, I don't know why I'm so Team Ollie. I don't really like water all that much. Like sand, I'm not a fan of.
You're a fan of him because he's nerd boy.
He's the smart one. He knows all the books, and
like I said, he's nerd boy.
Has all the books. Did you not remember his library from the first one?
Like I said, he's nerd boy. Which is so funny because I don't. My husband's not a bad boy. He's not. He's not your stereotypical bad boy. He's got that mischievous streak to him, but he's very much a, both of our husbands are good guys. But you look at my husband, you see my husband, and you see nice guy. And then but for my book heroes, I go for the bad boys. The straight up bad boys that I probably wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole when I was single. Meanwhile, your husband, people look at your husband and they think, okay, he's a bad boy with a good streak, kind of deal.
Knuckle tattoos and the tattoos on the back of his hands. Yes.
Yeah, but in your books,
for the nerds in the books.
they're really good guys. I wonder, we should get a psychologist on and we should talk about this.
It's our way of keeping the universe balanced. We seek harmony to keep nature balanced.
Is that what it is?
Yes.
It's not a mental problem because I have a tendency to go straight for the villains every time.
Well, it's not a problem that you go for the villains. It might be a problem when you like characters more when you find out that they're villains. Like you did.
Oh, I mean, come on. If we're going back to the 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, he was a much better character once we found out he was a bad guy.
I mean, he did get a little more grit to him.
Yes, exactly. And I meant to mute before I coughed, so I apologize.
So maybe we shouldn't get a psychologist on the show to tell us what that means.
I don't need a psychologist to tell me that I'm crazy because I already know this.
It's true.
I'm a writer after all.
You can pay me $150 an hour and I'll tell you that.
How about I just pay you in books and we call it even?
Oh, I muted myself on accident. Fair enough. Well,
we are about at our hour.
We are just
so early.
I know. It's very strange. Usually it's like, okay, good night. But now I can read some more. I can hunt down some chocolate somewhere in my freezer. I think Rich still has some ice cream that I have kindly left untouched, but that might change today.
I finally got the mug cakes. The cakes that you like make in the mug that you put in the microwave.
I love those.
I every time I pass by, I'm like, no, I shouldn't get those. I'm not going to get those. And then I'm like, why didn't I get them? Then I'll go to a grocery store and I see that they don't have it. And I'm like, why? But I actually got one the other day, like last weekend when I went grocery shopping. I'm like, I'm just going to get it and I'm going to put it in my cupboard and I'm not, just in case. I'm like 2 in. So good. These things they're terrible. They're so good. I got the caramel cake one.
Now I should go stock up on some and just save them for like a rainy day, which coincidentally it is today.
Or like, on for Tuesday. It works.
Right? Or breakfast, because we're adults. We do what we want.
Exactly. Cake makes a good breakfast. It's got your eggs, it's got your flour.
It's in a mug. It counts.
It's basically pancakes.
Just with a lot of sugar. And
pancakes have a lot of sugar, don't they? Well, when you pour the maple syrup on them, they have a lot of sugar.
Yeah. Mm.
So it's basically pancakes.
There you go. So mug in a cake. Cake in a mug. Legitimate breakfast source.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so great while reading, might I add. Right. Especially while reading this book. I recommend the caramel cake to go with this book.
Is it too late to call Uber Eats to bring me something? It probably is.
For you, it is.
Damn it.
All right, guys, we'll keep reading Kingdom of Copper and join us next week. Next week, we've got Mia Hopkins coming back. So you actually get to talk with Mia because the last time she was on the show, you had that awful class that you had to go to.
That's true.
And you missed a whole month of episodes. But now you actually get to come and talk with Mia and see how delightful she is.
Yay! All right, everyone. Have a good night.
Good night.
See you next week.